Just want to give you the quick itinerary, and that is that we're going to put on Jesse Clark's new film, Free to Grow, which if you haven't read all this fine print on the flyers, you can take a flyer and read the details later or see it online. But I've also got information on a trifold out here of Old Grove Films. That's the film company that his filmmaking company, and information on herbicide spraying. And then we have Carol Van Strom's book, A Bitter Fog, which if you haven't read it, if you haven't read it or you want to, you're looking forward to reading it soon. There's only 6 copies. So after the film and the speakers, actually after the film, she's going to read an excerpt from it, and then you're really going to want to go buy it. And there's only 6. Just letting you know, I've got mine stashed. But there are QR codes and stuff to be able to buy them online from the other sources that sell them. So you won't be left in the cold. You might have to meet with her. Thank you for fighting for everybody for so long. Yeah, my parents and my family it's all the same family. Um, and we all, like, Melise, who's in Carol's book, her daughter Carissa was a friend of mine. And anyways, her sister Melinda lives across from where I lived at the time. And so her sister came there for her last days. And so when I found out there was going to be aerial spraying again in our area, thank you. I got a phone call from somebody. They told me, and I just went, "What?" And I didn't know I had PTSD from it because I guess you don't know what really affects you as a child. And I just started sobbing frantically, and just went into like a survival mode. And joined in with a few other people. Like one of the person that had already started had also heard about it and started fighting it, and just did 20-hour days or something for 3 weeks straight. And anyways, eventually, long story, but eventually got them to not aerial spray the private timber owners. They did backpack spray. So it wasn't a win-win, but at least we cost them over $20,000, and the property sold for like $1 million less than it would have in like a couple months later. So there's that. And long story, but the herbicide fighting here and the herbicide spraying and the clear cutting and the poisoning of our forests and our waters and our air and our children and dogs and families and friends, started in the 50s probably, I don't know, but in the 70s, the fight started really seriously here when Agent Orange came over. So anyway, you'll learn all about how it began. The film you're about to see, learn about how it began here on the coast and Lincoln County and Alsea area from Carol. And then the film here is Jesse's following two families and a man in their journeys and their battles with herbicide spray and their experiences. And so, yeah, it's more current. And then after that, we're going to show a quick film that we made back to the beginning of during the spray episode that was inspired. The vibe was inspired by a bitter fog. And then the panel. So Carol Van Strom, Chuck Willer from Coast Range Association, who is a financial forest expert of the whole Northwest, and everybody uses his studies and his research and his I want to say booklets, I guess, and just all of his things to inform legislature, and so many bits and parts since 1993 before he was there for the making of the Northwest Forest Plan and was a part of that. We also have Eron King, who was in the film. Her and her husband are back here. She's going to be on the panel, so you'll learn all about her story there. And now she's also part of. Yay, Barb's here. So her and then the final speaker, Deb Fant, who's also on the panel. They both now are part of Protect Lane County Watersheds, which Barb is as well, for watershed rights, to be able to have healthy, safe drinking water in Lane County for all the same reasons. And in 2015, they started, these three, and Rio's here too, started the Lincoln County Community Rights, and eventually got a ban on aerial pesticide spraying, which, by the way, herbicides and pesticides are linked into one thing. So when you hear pesticide, it also includes herbicide in forestry and a lot of things. So yeah, in 2016, I think we got the ban. Lincoln County voted it in, and the ban, and I think 19 months later, They got overturned by state preemption because, of course, a big logging company sued it. But we're the first county to ever do that, and it was pretty amazing. Um, we knew it was probably coming, but really, really amazing. Took a lot of work, and it really shows that even without the funding that these millionaires corporations have, we still have people power, and we can still win battles like this. Yeah. If we continuously fight for them, and we fight together, and we just keep going, and we get, we just keep going. It's the only option we have, and thanks to battles that have been won before, we have, a few things are better. Right now, things are getting waterfalls going on in crazy directions, but we just have to keep it together, keep being in community, keep working together, keep talking together, keep having food and making art together. Yeah, so it's one of the reasons we're doing this. Plus, of course, the president's, executive order for more glyphosate, and so it's out in the news right now. The Mother Jones report just came out a couple months ago. The Maha mamas are pissed. So there's a lot of glyphosate and herbicide talk going around nationally, and so this is a really good time to get this information back into our heads, get it back into our bodies and in our minds, so it comes out of our mouths, and so we take action to do the best that we can to protect ourselves from this, from awful poisons and toxins and just all of the crazy environmental degradation that's aiming in our direction right now. So that was a little longer than I thought, but never. But thank you guys so much for coming, and please, coastrange.org, we've got information out there for Coast Range. Emeraldcurtaincollective.org, we've got information out there too. And we have all of our handouts on the table. I'm gonna have snacks out there too at the end. Please take handouts, and Emerald Curtain Collective started because of Coast Range's work. And we are arts, the conservation, awareness, promotion of our beautiful ecosystem, and basically through the arts, any form of art. So please join our collective in any way that you want to, because we're theater, poems, singing, all that. Anyway, mwah. You guys are well behaved. You don't have to really call you to order. We're gonna have a book reading from Carol Van Strum. That's from A Bitter Fog.
What I'm going to read to you is what I originally wrote as an afterword for the book, and then the publisher liked it so much he put it in the beginning. So some of what it refers to is what's actually in the book that you haven't read yet. So this beginning chapter is called The Murder of Melise. And the epigram is, hear us speak, oh, hear what we say, who and wheresoe'er ye be, unless you would die as we. And that's from Edna St. Vincent Millay's poem, The Murder of Ladis, in 1942. Ladis was a town, I think it was in Poland, Czechoslovakia, somewhere over there, where the Germans came in and essentially slaughtered the entire population, women, children, men, everybody. And her poem it's very hard to read. Oregon's coastal highway is a thin thread squeezed between the Pacific Ocean on one side and dense rainforest on the other. Melise Connolly drove along the coast, listening to a county commissioner speaking on the radio. His words rankled her. Her anger and resolve grew during the 40-mile drive to her home in the Coast Range, a home and sanctuary that was no longer safe for herself and her two small children. For more than a decade, Melise's friends and neighbors had been embroiled in a fight that pitted them against some of the world's most powerful corporations, the American government, and the U.S. military. At stake were their lives and the lives of their families. In the temperate rainforest surrounding Melise's home, blackberry vines and alder trees spring up almost overnight on untended clearings. Dense jungle quickly swallows abandoned homesteads and orchards, where only daffodils and an occasional apple tree remain among the ferns and saplings, blooming tributes to years of human toil. Vast thickets of brush carpet the scarred earth of clear cuts and old logging roads. By the 1970s, the dioxin-tainted Agent Orange herbicides 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T had become indispensable tools for replacing such, quote, unwanted vegetation, unquote, with plantations of Douglas fir saplings. In 1979, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's emergency ban of the herbicide 2,4,5-T sent shockwaves through the timber and chemical industries. They predicted the loss of 20,000 timber jobs and blamed marijuana growers for the ban of what they proclaimed to be a perfectly safe poison. On the radio, repeated at every news break, Lincoln County Commissioner Andy Sedgwick vehemently denounced the 2,4,5-T ban, suggesting it was prompted by marijuana growers to protect their illegal crops. It was illegal in those days. Echoing earlier Dow Chemical Company propaganda, the commissioner claimed that health problems attributed to herbicides were actually caused by smoking marijuana. Melise was raging by the time she reached home, a few acres of land hacked out of the forest. A single mother at the age of 22, Melise clung doggedly to the log house she and her ex-husband had built themselves along Five Rivers, a tributary of the Alsea River, which wound through the Coast Range to empty into the Pacific. With the help of neighbors, she plowed the land, drove in truckloads of manure, and coaxed a small paradise from the forest soil. Her garlic field paid the mortgage. Beds of herbs, sweet basil, lemon thyme, rosemary, dill, sage, parsley, and shallot were sold fresh and chemical-free to restaurants up and down the coast, supplementing her winter income teaching exercise classes. For herself, Melise grew flowers. From March to November, the log house basked in a sea of hollyhocks, roses, lilies, daisies, narcissus, columbine, dahlias, tulips, and daffodils. Her business card was a photo of herself laughing under a cascade of flowers and garlic on her porch, a gigantic hibiscus blossom in her hair. And I think there's a photo of her somewhere in here. Well, anyway. Her flowers were no comfort that day, however. Shortly before Commissioner Sedgwick's broadcast, she had learned that the EPA had found dioxin in a neighbor's water supply directly upstream from her home. The neighbor had lost 2 babies through miscarriages and had another child with multiple birth defects. You can't help but wonder if there's a connection, Melise said. With 2,4,5-T banned, the Forest Service announced that it would substitute supposedly safe 2,4-D in its spray plans for that year, which included the headwaters of Ryan Creek, the source of water for Melise's home. She and her neighbors met with the district ranger, who had them mark their water sources on his spray map. He promised those areas would not be sprayed. 3 days later, Melise woke to the sound of a helicopter spraying Ryan Creek. Within the next few days, all of her young chicks and ducklings died. Her 6-month-old son developed persistent bloody diarrhea. In the surrounding valley during the next month, every pregnant woman in her first trimester miscarried. Several children were hospitalized with near-fatal spinal meningitis. Alarmed by these events, the Lincoln County Health Department began a study of health problems following the spraying in Five Rivers watershed. The EPA, however, took over the county's effort under the auspices of its Alsea study. Publicity about the study had prompted the commissioner's remarks about marijuana growers. On her farm, Melise had collected the dead ducklings and chickens, carefully preserved them in her freezer in the hope that she could get them analyzed someday. Still furious about Commissioner Sedgwick's comments, Melise retrieved the frozen chicks and ducklings from her freezer and drove 50 miles to the county offices in Newport. Carrying her infant son and the bag of frozen poultry, She marched unannounced into the commissioner's office and dropped the bag on his desk with a thump. "Open it," she commanded. As the startled commissioner peeled tinfoil from the small frozen bodies, Melise placed her son on his desk and peeled off the child's diaper. "Now, sir," she said, "you tell me those ducklings died from smoking too much marijuana. You tell me, you tell me." Fighting back tears, her voice shaking, she thrust a bloody, soiled diaper at the commissioner. "You tell me this child has bloody shits day after day from smoking too much marijuana. Tell me to my face, Mr. Commissioner." The next day, the commissioner went on the radio again, this time with a public apology. Information had been brought to his attention, he said, that convinced him of the grave health risks from herbicide exposure. For the rest of his time in office, Commissioner Sedgwick led a tireless campaign against the aerial spraying of herbicides in Lincoln County, joining the Lincoln County Medical Society in sponsoring ballot measures to restrict such uses. When the EPA took over the county's health study of her valley, Melise accompanied researchers as they gathered samples. She gave them the bodies of her chicks and ducklings and was promised the results on dioxin and herbicide analyses within 90 days. Melise hounded the EPA for 4 years, getting only vague assurances the results would be reported to her when completed. And the rest of the chapter details the way we finally found the results of those. But 10 years later, Melise was dead. On July 4th, 1989, 10 years after Ryan Creek was sprayed with 2,4-D, Melise Connolly died at the age of 32 of brain, lung, and breast cancer. Friends and neighbors gathered in Melise's gardens for the last time to spread her ashes among the flowers and trees she loved. Shortly thereafter, the new owners of the property bulldozed the gardens and garlic fields, and the house she had built burned to the ground. Berry vines and alder saplings now thrive in the clearing where her house and gardens once stood, the old pathways emerging ghost-like every spring in rows of bobbing daffodils. To the friends and family and children who loved her, Melise's death will never be negligible. A society that condones such murder cannot long endure. And here's a picture of Melise. I don't know if you can see it, but that's.
I've been watching the timber industry and forest management for 36 years in my job. And along the way, I've tried to read a few things and answer a few questions. I'm the kind of person that's always asking, what the hell is going on? And there's a lot of mysteries about Oregon. I come from Cook County, which is Chicago. The mysteries are very simple there. Refrigerators full of money, payments under the table. When I got to Oregon, I couldn't figure out how the state worked. So over the past 5 years, I've spent a lot of time thinking about that in light of these kinds of corruptions of public purpose. Herbicides, pesticides being one, forest management, like a bigger issue, private forest management. And I'd like to come at some point, somewhere, and deliver a little talk on what I think is going on in Oregon in terms of regulatory corruption, how the political system works, how political capture happens, and how power exercises its control in our fair state versus some other state. Every state has its own little way. And I just wanted to share that because I think it's germane to the issue we're talking about. How does it keep happening? And the second thing I would bring to your attention is we did a little population study of rural populations. Coast Range did 4 censuses. And what it shows in the rural areas between 1990 and 2020, that's 30 years, 4 censuses, is a draining of rural population. I actually think there is the population declines or underperforms the closer or more embedded it is in private industrial forest land. And I think there's a conscious, I don't use the word conspiracy because there's other words that I think are more scientifically nuanced, to drain rural population and to eliminate troublesome individuals by buying them out, selling out, and just mom and pop dies and their farm goes to the timber company. And this is transforming Western rural Oregon. And I've got some data and maps on that. So I just thought I'd share that. I'm always trying to figure out what the hell is going on.
Talk about what Sure. So I'm Eron King. I'm with Community Rights Lane County and Protect Lane County Watersheds. And we did just have a measure 20-373 on the ballot in Lane County. It was called the Watershed Bill of Rights. We were trying to secure rights for nature. It's all a way to try to get at the timber companies to get them to stop aerial spraying. It did not succeed, mainly because the elections are bought these days by corporations and rich interests that can spend unlimited money, and we do not have that. Anyway, I don't know what else to say about that. We are like crazy people talking about doing it again because it did afford us a great platform. It got our message out to a wider range of folks out there because, believe it or not, a lot of people in Oregon do not realize that they spray poisons from helicopters still. So we are not going away. Just because this has failed does not mean we're going away. Some of us have been fighting this since the 70s. So we do plan on pushing back continually. Not sure in what ways, but we are not going away.
I'd like to point out that when they say that they didn't, or that they failed, they got over 40,000 yes votes for this thing. And that's more votes than Lincoln County has altogether. Just to give you some perspective, okay? So good job.
People aware, yeah, and a lot of times that's what's super important. That we have to get people aware of what goes on so that somebody will sprout up at the right time, the right combination of people and something. There might be a doorway open, have a different change happen.
We've got a question right over your shoulder. Go for it.
Please.
I feel like the answer to this might be both, but because you are up down with people who have experience in all these different sort of layers of government, I'm curious,
like, is this fight, like, is it better to do it county by county, or is it better to go at it state? Like, where is the effort, where is the change? Like, if I'm figuring out like the mechanics, what it is that.
The problem with any local county, city attempts to regulate pesticides in any way is that an organization called ALEC, have you ever heard of it? It's the American Legislative Exchange Council. They have in every 50 state, they have basically bought and paid for enough legislators to write their own laws, preempting any attempts by local entities such as counties or municipalities to to control or any threat, not just pesticides, but fracking, all kinds of horrible things that corporations do that threaten not just people, but the entire ecosystems where they happen. And that's in every state. They've managed to get these laws that mean that local attempts to control never can happen because the minute, like when Lincoln County voters passed a measure to ban aerial spraying of pesticides, and it was immediately challenged and failed because of a state law that says that only the state legislature can control what these pesticides, where these pesticides are used. And to me, the main thing to do, I know, just pie in the sky,
Statewide.
not just statewide. You know what? The only reason these things can be sold at all, ever, anywhere, is that they lie about them.
Yes.
Honest to God, that is the only way they can be sold. Is through lies. You know what? Think we've ever have a federal law that said you can't lie?
Right.
Can you imagine what that would do?
I like you can't knowingly harm your person in the environment and people do.
There's a myth that the agencies, the EPA, the DEQ, they're all there to help us, protect us from corporations, from the harm being done. And that is a myth. They were actually created to be a buffer between the corporations doing harm and us, the community members who are being harmed. That is a huge myth. And as she touched on it, preemption is huge. That is why all of our organizations cannot actually get done what they want to get done. They want to stop aerial spraying. They want to stop mining, the lithium mining. They want to stop the data centers. We're not going to be able to stop those because it's already preempted at the state level. So yes, we're doing it at the county level because we just don't have the resources to do it at the state level. I mean, you need a huge amount of support. It took us a while to get those signatures just at the county level. So it would be great to get a statewide aerial spray ban. It's just, we need more people and more support and more money, obviously.
And vote them out, don't live right. Right, and vote them out.
Environmental.
Vote them out, because that's one way that.
Yeah.
That these projects get dropped, or at least turned into another, certain projects get dropped is because the legislatures are afraid of getting voted out. And so with enough pressure, quite a few things have stopped in this past year because of it. A lot of them just try to use sneaky way to get through, but pressure does help. Sometimes.
So, we talk about corporations and companies, these entities. Most of the people that work for a corporation really do not have an emotional investment in what the enterprise is. Okay, so if you work in a lumber mill, do people really care about 2x4s? I mean, it's a job. The purpose of the company is to generate profits for the owners. Now, the owners don't work in the mill. Who are the owners? So there is an owning class in this country that's rather concentrated. There's a wealth distribution. And these folks have their own system of politics that influences federal law, federal regulation, state law, state regulation. And so there's many things these folks will let us have democracy about. But there are many other pies we can't have democracy about. So we get endless war. We get no funding into many things. We can't have universal health care. There's a whole system in place, but it's not about spraying herbicides per se. It's not about being a timber company per se. It's about a profit generating system that feeds money to those who own the capital or the companies. And that's a whole presentation itself. But it's one we should all listen to, and there's many people talking about it. On a positive note, irrespective of what the media is saying, irrespective of even often our own narratives, there's a lot of people wising up, particularly in the under 40 age bracket. And I think there's a rather sophisticated politics that's afoot in the country. And I'm hoping that becomes more mobilized and focused, and we can deliver torpedo right into the heart of this system.
Yeah.
And, there's no magic bullet, really. It's we need a revolution in how our system is governed to something that is more honest and fair to people.
Now you plan to have a profit. Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's any other questions brewing in your minds.
You set us off again.
Oh, hello. I'd like to just reinforce what you just said, Chuck. I'm looking at Chris Smalls, black guy who organized Amazon workers in, was it New York or New Jersey? Got national attention and I think sparked an organizing movement. I've been a longtime environmentalist and have always wished that the two, organized labor and the environmental movement, would combine, and because, there are corrupt unions, there are corrupt union officials. That I think the greatest actions I've seen in the San Francisco Bay Area have been from the rank and file. Local 10, ILWU, stopped Zim boats, Israeli boats coming into the port of Oakland. We shut that down. The leaders, the labor leaders, didn't do that. That was rank and file. They used safety regulations to not show up to work because of all the protesters that showed up. So, I'm seeing those signs too, Chuck. That's one thing that makes me really optimistic is the youth that's getting into the labor movement now.
Yes, but in the back. Oh, no, you're looking over your shoulder. Did you have something?
She probably flipped her
Oh,
hair.
okay.
Oh, she was flailing.
I have a question about, kind of back on what we're talking about county and state. We just went to an Ostera. Oh, must have used that.
Yeah, this is for video.
Oh. I'm not supposed to use it. He's got it.
All right,
Um,
we'll get back.
We just went to an Ostera meeting, which is the Oregon, I already forgot, constitutional right amendment. I'm not even missing a letter in there, but, yeah, environmental is the word I was missing. So does it seem possible,
because I already support that, and we have been. I think a lot of us have been or are, and if you learn about it, probably will more. I just learned more, and it gave me like a little more hope, like a little more direction, learning more, specifics on it. I'm thinking. My question is, does anybody have an opinion on like? Do you guys know? Does anyone know a lot about it? Do you have an opinion on if that seems like a possible thing to amend? Oh, sorry, guys, to amend the Oregon Constitution.
Oh, Sarah.
Sarah, yeah, to be able to have a right to a healthy environment. So to be able to have a human right to be healthy, to have a healthy air and water. That's what they're working on, getting in the legislation eventually on the state level. So amending the Oregon Constitution, because then there'd be a backing for things like for lawsuits against the corporation. Obviously, there's already tons of pushback from companies and lies and stuff, but does anyone have a strong opinion on that, or like a way that would, does that seem like the way? Should we all get behind that really strongly? And then if so, in which ways, and how should forces be combined?
The practice of coming together is the big piece of that. And coming together, even though we may not agree on every little detail. I think that's a good target to have.
For state level, for like OSERA or
Yeah.
something?
And is this really happening? I mean,
Yeah.
there is okay.
It's not on the ballot, it's not happening yet, but they're slowly working on it. 2028. It's been a couple of years already, I think. We went to the Capitol for it.
Well,
last year.
they're doing a listening tour right now. You can actually put in your testimony where you've been harmed by the lack of government controls, et cetera. A lot of what you guys have been talking about tonight. You can actually put that online. They're going to be taking all this and compiling it for the legislature and trying to do a whole statewide thrust for it.
Anyway, so there's ways to do it. OCERA, OCERA.org. And
No, it's Sarah United.
Really? OCERAUnited.org. And then Stewards United is in there. You start digging and you'll find all the bits. A little bit interesting.
It's modeled on the state of Montana legislation, which has had successes. And so if you want to learn about this model of adding an amendment to the Constitution, then check out the successes in Montana, the lawsuits filed by children and other people. And so there's precedent cases in Montana.
Another myth I'd like to bust is that you elect somebody to the legislature and they work for you. That's a myth. They work for the people who put them there with all the money. They don't work for us. I tried several times to go to different government agencies, the elected officials. No, the timber company paid them too much to listen to us. So I'm glad to hear that that's being, successful there. That's great.
And the big chemical.
But I don't hold my breath for Oregon elected officials, because big timber is huge here in Oregon, if people didn't realize that. And they have bought the elected officials. They're in the judicial system. We tried before Measure 2373, we tried a straight out aerial spray ban in Lane County. We didn't even get on the ballot because they kept just changing the goal line. And then we ended up eventually in the Oregon Supreme Court. And because, yes, we were preempted, they shot us down. So we didn't even make it on the ballot. So that's why we tried the protecting nature instead of trying to ban something. Because, good luck trying to do anything with elected officials or the government in general.
I think recent elections indicate where hope or a solution lies. And that is, in light of the current structure of media and the fact that money is buying elections, unless you have an autonomous grassroots massive door knocking infrastructure, you will not defeat power and money. But if you have an organization that can knock on doors and talk to people in plain language about issues that people care about, you can defeat money, you can defeat power, and that's happening all over the country. But you have to have that awareness that there are a set of issues that people care about, progressive issues, and you have to have the infrastructure to knock on every door.
Okay, I have a question for you guys. How many of you know people who have allergies to foods? Okay. Are they the same for everybody? Nope, they're different, aren't they? How about, do you know anybody who is chemically sensitized?
At my clients.
Yeah. There are a lot of people who live in our communities because we're at the coast where the wind blows off the ocean and they're hoping for clean air. I wanted to raise one issue about a win that is ongoing for the last 20 some years. And it is a group of people who are chemically sensitized, who have negotiated with ODOT, state agency, right? And they have agreed not to do spraying along the 101 corridor between the end of the bridge here in Newport to the South County line, because they have a group of people who have been going out and pulling out the weeds and who have been planting pollinator plants along that corridor. So that's a good piece of news, and I'm giving you, yes, and watering them. I'm good. But the other part of that is the harms that happen to people, and it's this amorphous thing that you talked about the acute response to spray exposure, where there's bloody noses, bloody diarrhea, headaches, people being fuzzy brained and forgetful. But there are chronic things that happen in our bodies, and that not everybody responds to exposure in the same way. So it's, the opposition here goes, well, not everybody has that problem, so it's not a problem. It's like it's your fault because you made it happen. But I just wanted to raise that issue because if you run into people who are sensitive, what you wear on your body when you're in public, what you use on your clothing when you wash it, how many people avoid the aisles in the stores that have the chemicals? Yeah. So we need to be aware of those things. And in the film, the young man who was the helicopter, Daryl Ivy, he was talking about how the hospital didn't know what to do with him. And I think we've gotten better over a decade or so, but it still is a difficult thing. And one book that has been written by a man who lives in Yachats is called Environmentally Induced Illness. And it has a rich background in both human rights, the philosophies of what's right about informed consent, whether you give your consent to be sprayed or not. Tell that to the drifting toxins coming through. Anyway, there's good news in what Tom has to offer here. And I would encourage everybody to be on the lookout for mindfulness about how am I impacting others, and speaking up for people who are sensitized and being sensitive to their issues. Just a pitch.
And that's Pollinators 101 project, what's it called? Pollinators 101 project?
Yeah.
That's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah. Rio.
Erin, just could you just talk a little bit about the testing / protecting yourself things that people can do to live out? I mean, I know that the testing was really hard and expensive, but that's the first thing people go to. We should test or we should do this. Can you just talk a little bit about your experience there, since you guys really developed that?
We, our community got really lucky in that we found a doctor, Dr. Dana Barr. She was part of the CDC. She came to Corvallis to give a talk, and we were able to approach her and talk to her about what was going on. And she said, I don't only think you need to get your urine tested, I will test your urine. So we got really lucky in that she tested all of our urine for free. And that's amazing because testing is really expensive. You have to know what they are spraying in order to test for it. And only so many of those chemicals are even able to be tested through urine. They don't have the ability to test for many of these poisons in our body. So to protect yourself, you basically need to leave your property. I mean, they're going to continue to spray. You can try to stay on your property. You're going to get exposed. Even if you leave, there's revolatilization. So those poisons will revolatize back into the air on the fog and transfer miles. The spray that poisoned my family, where we were tested for our urine, that spray happened 4 miles away. And buffers to sprays are measured in feet. And this happened 4 miles away. So buffer zones are just ridiculous. They don't help. So, did I answer your question?
Erin, can you go on with your story and tell us briefly how the EPA found 21 people in your community positive in their urine for atrazine? And what came of it? Why you stopped pursuing the case?
So that whole Highway 36 investigation basically was swept under the rug. They came to the conclusion that we couldn't point the finger at the timber industry like we all wanted to, because all of us commute to town. So from Triangle Lake to Eugene, we're being exposed in so many other ways that they couldn't point the finger, even though our urine samples were within 24 hours of spray. And all of our urine spiked in atrazine and 2,4-D, because those are the two that we tested for. So, I mean, it was pretty apparent it was the timber pesticides. But again, that investigation held hands with the timber industry. We had a lawyer and we FOIA'd throughout the entire investigation. So we got all of the information that no one else was getting. And we saw firsthand how they were holding hands with the timber corporations, making sure they were okay with what was about to come out.
And who's they? Erin, who is they?
Oh, so they is all of the agencies, OHA, Oregon Health Authority.
Government agencies.
Yeah, all the government agencies. They touted, they were so proud of how many government agencies were working together to do this investigation. That eventually was just swept under the rug, like the LC investigation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They really want to hear it. Want to hear a good outcome? I gotcha.
Yeah, this is just a little bit of what we went through. But the analyses that they promised to do on Melissa's ducklings and chicks were part of something called the ALSI study, which EPA initially, they hired a professor from the University of Florida and one from the University of Colorado to design and execute this study, which it had 2 phases. They studied data from the main hospitals, mostly Corvallis, for a 1,500 square mile that was an area of mostly the Siuslaw National Forest, and that would encompass parts of Benton County, Lincoln County, a little bit of Lane County. And they examined the hospital records of all women who miscarried. They called them spontaneous abortions. What they were doing was correlating that data with timber company spraying in that 1,600 square mile area. And the second phase, these were going on together, but they were in two separate kind of sections, was to sample the environment, like the water, the silt, the sludge, whatever, and small animals in the water supplies of all those women that miscarried. And the first phase of it was so shocking. That was the hospital records. And it was, I have to, even that study, I mean, they did their best, but there was a lot of data left out. But anyway, the correlation between miscarriages and spraying within a mile of a residence where a pregnant woman was so incredible that EPA issued an emergency suspension of 245T, which is the other half of Agent Orange, and the other half being 24D. So they issued that emergency suspension, and that's what the commissioner in the radio show I read you was talking about, blaming it all on marijuana. But anyway, but the second phase, all the samples they collected, they were all going to be analyzed for the main herbicides that were used, which was 2,4,5-T, 2,4-D, and there were a couple of others. Silvex was another one, which is related to 2,4,5-T very closely. Anyway, and dioxin, specifically 2,3,7,8 TCDD, which is the most toxic of the dioxins. It's incredibly not only toxic, but it's persistent. It does not go away. Anyway, that was what they were going to test for. And 4 years later, we still had no results. And in fact, in a separate lawsuit that the people of our valley brought along with NCAP, the Northwest Coalition for Alternatives to Pesticides, which grew out of our original CAPS case, was we were in court and there was a hearing scheduled for a certain day. And the lawyer from University of Oregon Law School that was handling the lawsuit for us, and he asked me, we were talking about those samples and how we just hadn't gotten any results, and we'd been badgering EPA and they kept saying no. And then when we did Freedom of Information Act and discovery requests, they said they didn't know what happened to the samples. They didn't exist. So the day before this hearing in Eugene in the federal court, our friend, our lawyer, Mike Axline, he actually called the 5 labs in the country that were capable of doing dioxin sampling. That's all there were. There were no others. And in the second or third one he called, it was the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, Nebraska. He called the lab there, and the head chemist there, a guy named Mike, anyway, he said, oh yeah, he said, they sent the results of those to EPA 4 years ago. I said, you want them? And he faxed them to Mike, who immediately faxed them to me. I sent them right on to Jim Weaver, who's the congressman for Lane County, but he was so invested in what we were doing. I mean, he used to be able to call up a congressman and answer the phone. Incredible. So I called him. He was in DC at the time. So the next day, we're in court. The EPA and Forest Service are in there, and their lawyer, whatever the government lawyer is called, Mike asked him about these samples, and he said in the courtroom that the EPA had no record of those samples ever being collected. And then he called me to the stand. And we had arranged, and we had 3 copies of these
Yeah.
sample results, which showed shocking levels of dioxin, horrifying. And so I got up there and said, well, here's the results, and it had the date right on them when they were sent to EPA. Meanwhile, Jim Weaver was in Congress in DC calling for a congressional investigation into why they had covered up these samples for 4 years. So it was just one of those amazing things all coming together within one day, basically. And largely thanks to that kind of testimony, the federal court banned the use of any herbicides in the national forest here. And that was upheld by the Ninth Circuit because of widespread fraud in the testing of those chemicals. And that's what a good part of this book is the fact that all of them, the registrations for all of them, 2,4-D, advocacy, all the random chemicals they spray on it, were tested by something called industrial water testing in Northbrook, Illinois, which it turned out was just making up. They called them magic pencil studies. They either made them up, or if a bunch of rats died when they were exposed, they just threw them out and replaced them with new rats. And oh, look, it didn't hurt any of them. I mean, that is the basis for the registrations of almost all the poisons they're using on the forest today. Yeah. So this is what I mean by lies. These things could never be sold without fraud and lies.
There's another book out there called Poison Spring. What is his name? Valianatos. He worked for the EPA, and it's basically a whistleblower book talking about, there's a whole chapter in there about Oregon, about how they covered up the LC study and how corrupted the EPA actually is.
Yeah, the LC study actually, it has never been published. The EPA, they banned the scientists from ever publishing their data from the LC study. They had armed guards at scientific conferences to keep those 2 men from presenting their data. In fact, the only record of it published was by Oregon State University scientists who were also working for Dow Chemical Company, and completely they wrote a report that they published that is just totally whitewashed the whole study. But you cannot find the public. Now you can, because I put them all up on something called the Poison Papers, which was
There's some information here about it.
yeah, that's another. You really want to hear any more?
Yes.
Yeah. The Poison Papers happened because the original publisher of the book was Sierra Club, who I'm sad to say took it out of their catalog a month later because I think they were under pressure. Yeah. But it was republished by a guy named Peter von Stackelberg, and has something called Jericho Hill Publisher, state New York. And what was I going to say? Oh, right. He got a grant. That was it. He got a grant to come out to my farm with 2 high-speed scanners and laptops and anyway, the thing was that for all those, like 40, 50 years that I've been working on this issue with lawyers all over the place in Montana and Agent Orange, the veterans, the US veterans, I've been working with them. So I've just accumulated a huge amount of paper, lots of it, like hundreds of thousands of pages. And a lot of it was stored in our barn, which fell apart. And so he got a grant to come out and scan all the documents I've gotten in Discovery and Freedom of Information Act. And there was a lot of stuff. I worked on PCB litigation, just anyway. So we spent two-week sessions, like 10 and 12 hours a day. We had to clean every page from rat shit, cobwebs, all the disgusting stuff that happened in the barn. And each page had to be cleaned off. We had a neighbor who had retired from the Postal Service, and she came in and did miracles because she never read anything. She just cleaned. Because if you stopped to read it, it was so horrifying, you got distracted. Anyway, and another neighbor he was the one that wheelbarrowed all these boxes of disgusting paper up to my house and cleaned them off, scanned them and put them up. They're available on something called the poison papers, which they're up on the cloud, wherever that is. I think it's somewhere between us and heaven. And then Columbia University also took the same data and put it together in something called toxic docs. So they have the whole set. And then University of California also does, and I forget which campus it is. Anyway, if anybody really wants to track it down, let them know what it is. Anyway, it's all there. Amazing. For litigation. It's been used already in litigation, like San Diego, I think, Seattle, I think Portland too. They've already used a bunch of that data to sue Monsanto, now Bayer, for poisoning their waterways and their with PCBs. So it's being used, which is great. Sorry.
Not at all. I just want to say, I know that none of you here do this for praise or recognition, but in this small little space, the collective amount of effort and mileage, stories that you have shared, the storytellers are what keep us going. Even we can read all this on the internet, we could find some stats, especially thanks to the effort you put, but hearing the people that have put the time in, each one of you have lit a fire under my ass. But I can't imagine what you've done already, and I thank you so much.
I gotta say, there have been fun times too.
No, that's a great smile you got on your face. I see it.
Any other questions?
Anybody? I do have some, sorry, we don't have any last minute tidbit before we go, pop your hand up or say it, but on the little cutout thing by Carol's, whatever, trifold, there's, I went onto the poison paper websites and just, printed up a couple of things and there's, I actually have a little handout that has that has like the website on it too. Tiny handout, like the end of a paper I cut off. But, so yeah, you can dive deep in there, and inside that, there's other links to the other places that have compiled those notes. Anyways, and there's a couple books up there still of a bitter fog. There's about 2 copies left, and so I'm thinking that it's probably time for Carol to sign some books. If people are looking to buy them, and I need to get mine signed. So I'm pretty excited. Yeah.
Let you know when Chuck's coming to town.
Yes. Yeah, and if you guys are interested, please join us. Postrange.org is the sign up, it's right there. We also have brochures, there's handouts, Chuck brought some, there's some full length handouts right here, little pamphlet, whatever they are, 8x10s. Grab one of those, there's other handouts from the Lane County Watershed, thank you guys, and just check out the websites, and if you want to be part of, talk to me and Willa@coastrange.org or Chuck W@coastrange.org, and we'll help, talk to me, I'll help wrangle him in for a presentation.